When buying a camera, there are 3 important settings you need to know how to use to get the best image possible. Hi, my name is Julio, and today I'm going to be telling you about 3 things in your camera that you need to know how to use. These are the aperture, the ISO, and your shutter speed. These 3 settings complement each other but also have their own functions. In this video, I'll be explaining what they do, their advantages and disadvantages, and how they apply to your specific scenario. So first, let's talk about aperture. In basic terms, this is how wide the hole in your lens is, determining how much light can go into your camera. The smaller the aperture, for example, aperture like 1.4, 2.8, the wider the hole and the more light will be let through. A result of a small aperture is what is called a shallow depth of field. This basically makes your background blurrier and makes the subject stand out more. As you increase the aperture of your camera, the hole will slowly start to shrink, letting less light in. As a result, you'll have a deeper depth of field, making your background sharper than it was before. The advantage of controlling your aperture is that you can make sure your shot is well lit and not too exposed. This can be better than using your ISO, which we'll talk about later, as it is a natural way of controlling your light. Disadvantage of changing your aperture is that you might lose the blurry background you want to make your video look more cinematic. But I guess that's just taste, right? Next is your ISO. This is basically artificial light. This is a good way of making your shot brighter without affecting other settings like aperture and shutter speed. However, cranking the ISO up too high will cause a lot of grain and make your shot look very noisy. It's not very pretty. In this case, you can turn your ISO down and compensate by using a lower aperture, or setting up better lighting. And finally, let's talk about shutter speed. This one might seem confusing at first, but once you know how it works, it will be very easy to use. The shutter speed is literally the speed it takes for your camera's shutter to close. In your camera, the shutter speed will be shown as 1 over a certain value. This value will be measured in seconds. When recording a video, the basic rule is to set your shutter speed to double your frame rate. In some cases, this might change due to some lights having different frequencies, but most of the time, stick to this rule. For example, if I'm recording a video at 24 FPS, I would set my shutter speed to double that, which is 1 over 48 per second. In my case, my camera already has 1/50th of a second, so choose whatever's closest to double this frame rate. This way, your video will look as natural as possible, having the right amount of motion blur, which is what we see through our eyes. If you crank up the shutter speed too high, it will reduce the amount of motion blur in your video, making your video look very unnatural and very choppy. However, increasing shutter speed like this kind of helps when recording videos in bright sunlight when you can't really turn down your ISO or turn up your aperture. This is because increasing shutter speed also decreases the brightness in your video. Same way, if you turn down your shutter speed to below half of your frame rate, your video will have a lot of motion blur and it will make it look like you're about to pass out. Anyway, I hope this video helped you learn what the 3 main settings of your camera do. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll be answering them as soon as possible. Also, if you have any suggestions of other videos I could make about filmmaking, photography, anything to do with the camera, I'll be happy to do that as well. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with other people that you know are starting out in filmmaking. Goodbye!